Freedom's the answer. What's the question? You're listening to Ernest Hancock.
Stop me now. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Stop me now.
The Black Swan, the impact of highly improbable, things that happen, with a new section on robustness and fragility. Now, the guy is Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Taleb, so I want to make sure I got that right. Now, The Revolution in Egypt and Where to Be When Black Swans Appear by Bill Bonner. This is something, they had it published at Daily Reckoning. We have a lot of stuff from them also. Now, I'm telling you, this is really good stuff for you to go read. You go to Top of Freedom's Phoenix right now, and Bill Bonner, Bonner, if you put in his name and the Revolution in Egypt, it'll come up, for those of you that aren't seeing it on the video screen. Now, let me go ahead and read just a couple of paragraphs of this, and you kind of get an idea where he's going with this. Not much action in the stock market on Friday. Gold didn't do much either. The big news was the Hosni Mubarak called it quits. After supporting him for 3 decades, the U.S. threw him under the tank. Yep, that's one way of putting it. I'm going to make this bigger. Almost everywhere, except the Mubarak household, people rejoiced. We were surprised that they had an opinion one way or the other. We got emails from strangers telling us that a hopeful development this was, what a hopeful development this was, or how free elections might be coming next. Typical was the report in the Washington Post. Mubarak became the second Arab leader in a month to succumb to his people's powerful thirst for freedom. Thirst for freedom? If Egyptians were thirsty for freedom, they must be like camels. They only need a drink of it once every 30 years. Mubarak ruled for 3 decades. Egyptians went without quenching their powerful thirst for freedom through the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Apparently, they only needed to bring the cup to their lips this year. Many spoke of the jubilant crowds and the idealistic youth behind the peaceful revolution. We were tempted to mention the jubilant crowds that attended the execution of Louis XVI, or the idealistic youth who gathered to jeer at Nicholas II when he and his family were shipped off to Yekaterinburg, where they would be murdered along with their valet and even the cook. Mubarak left office on Friday. The army took control on Saturday. On Sunday, the generals dissolved parliament. Revolutions don't always turn out well. The French Revolution was a good time to be in England. The Russian Revolution was a good time to be almost anywhere other than Russia. Even the American Revolution was a good time to be elsewhere too. And then, when Americans finally got their freedom from Britain, they almost immediately began shackling one another. Tax rates had been only about 3% when the English ran the colonies. Now, the federal rate is 11 times as much. And for every injustice done to Americans by the British, there must be 100 they have done to themselves. But revolutions happen. Where should you be now? We don't know. But we suggest that you have a bolt hole somewhere, a refuge, a getaway, a family stronghold. Many things could go wrong. Earthquakes, plagues, volcanic eruptions, wars, bankruptcies, hyperinflations. And we wouldn't rule out invasions from space. These events are hard to predict. Even something as obvious as the revolution in Egypt was unforeseen by almost everyone. We pay the CIA hundreds of billions to keep on top of things exactly like this. But as one journal put it, sarcastically, CIA forecasts suck. Here at the Daily Reckoning, however, we take up for the CIA, just as we would stand up for any drunk or half-wit. The CIA's work is at least on par with the SEC or Amtrak. We have no doubt about it. It is at least as efficient as a post office. It is as necessary as a TSA, and it is as competent and effective as the Congressional Ethics Committee. But we do not take up pen today to criticize America's intelligence agencies. Instead, we merely point out that bad stuff happens. What kind of bad stuff? All kinds. Kinds you'd expect and kinds you don't. The problem with bad stuff is that it often comes in drag, pretending to be something it is not. A peaceful revolution, for example, can turn bloody mighty fast. And no one gives you advance notice. Real trouble comes unannounced. If you knew that the dollar would collapse on the 3rd of June, for example, you could switch your money into euros. If the Irish Prime Minister called you on the phone and tipped you off, hey, we're going to default next Thursday, you'd know what to do. You'd short the euro and make a bundle. Or if you intercepted a secret cable, nuclear attack on Washington, D.C., 4 p.m. October 13th, you get out of town as soon as possible. But black swans do not honk before they appear. They just appear. We've spent a lot of time anticipating disaster. There will be a collapse of the international monetary system, for example. It is almost inevitable, but it is still unpredictable. We can't say when or how it will come about. Likewise, much higher inflation rates are coming, and a huge sell-off in government bond markets. Those things will provoke widespread financial disasters, possibly leading to riots, revolutions, and other bad stuff. It is possible that these financial calamities will cause a major economic disruption like the collapse of the Roman Empire. In the chaos, trading networks could fall apart and take many decades to rebuild. GDP growth could turn negative and remain in the red for years. Developed regions could slide backward for generations. Emerging markets could explode. Who knows what would happen? We see trouble coming, but we can't tell you exactly what color wig it will be wearing, when it will get here, or what it will do when it arrives. And then there are the disasters that are impossible to see coming at all. For example, our old friend Mark Farber includes an essay on cybersecurity in his latest newsletter. Whether we acquiesce or not, our lives are determined by technology and computer systems. Our electric grids, nuclear systems, water supplies, financial institutions, fuel systems, communication systems, as well as our governments are directed by technological systems which are subject to attack or disruption. Apparently, the cyber attackers are well funded, very sophisticated groups engaged in serious warfare all the time. For the moment, they are outgunned by the forces of law and order, led by the USA. But imagine what happens when the USA runs out of money. How long will it take for the attackers to get ahead technologically? With all the billions and billions of dollars worth of capital in the world and the millions of people with high-tech computer skills, it seems like a matter of time before a serious black swan event occurs. One thing about cyber war makes it especially attractive to low-budget terrorists. It costs relatively little to maintain a serious threat. No battleships necessary, no billion-dollar fighter jets, no nuclear deterrent. In fact, with the right team of software geniuses, it may be possible to turn a nation's own nuclear capacity against itself. The U.S. Department of Defense classified military computer networks were attacked in 2008 at a military base in the Middle East. An infected flash drive was inserted into U.S. military laptop, presumably by a foreign intelligence agency. The code uploaded itself to a network run by U.S. Central Command, spreading undetected in classified and unclassified systems, creating a digital source from which data could be transferred to computer systems under foreign control. In other words, when it comes to bad stuff, the sky is the limit. It's going to happen eventually, one way or another, and it could be real bad. And when bad stuff happens, you're better off being somewhere else. Where? Generally, bad stuff seems to happen most often in cities. Why is that? Cities are where most people live. It's where governments are. And it is where the labor force is most specialized. There are no subsistence farmers living in cities, nor do urban populations live off the land. Instead, they depend on complex networks of commerce. The typical city dweller produces neither food nor energy. He sits all day in an office, completely dependent on others to provide power and food. Then he goes home, still completely dependent on the division of labor for most of his most important needs. Progress can be described as the elaboration of the division of labor. In man's most primitive state, specialization is extremely limited. From what we've been told, the early man was the hunter, early woman gatherer. That was about the extent of it. As the tribe grows larger, specialization increases. One person might tend the fire, another might be in charge of making clothes or arrows. The advent of sedentary agriculture and towns caused a big leap forward in human progress, and not coincidentally, the division of labor. Some townspeople went out to tend the fields. Others began to focus in on woodworking or ironmongering or making weapons or clothes. Some played cards and hung around in bars. there was soon a home building industry, and not long after, merchants, prostitutes, and bankers, and even shyster lawyers and tax collectors. Well, let me tell you what's happening. The Black Swan is coming. Are you going to be ready? Oh, go to Freedom's Phoenix front page now. Here in Mesa, we're going to be interviewing this guy. He's got a hydroponic old pool turned into greenhouse fish and poultry vegetable system going right now. Oh, it's going to be about off-grid living in your backyard. Are you ready? Are you ready? You're going to need to be. I guarantee it. Stay tuned. Sibel Edmonds is next. Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. Readers of freedomsphoenix.com are constantly provided the information that detail the real news between the lines of propaganda about government policies and the true relationship we all have with coercive governments. Learn the true condition of our economy, innovations and technological breakthroughs in energy, health, computer science, and space travel. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media, the media that is so last century. Corporate media has evolved into nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but we now have a fantastic alternative. FreedomsPhoenix.com provides constant news updates on the issues that affect our lives in the most important ways. Our liberty and our property are under constant attack, and FreedomsPhoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda while encouraging the participation of our readers. Join us at FreedomsPhoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com. FreedomsPhoenix.com, where the revolution between the ears has already matured.